Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. You know, one of the perks about having 4 kids that you know about is actually getting a direct line to the big man up north. And this year, he wants you to know the best gift that you can give someone is the gift of Mint Mobile's unlimited wireless for $15 a month. Now, you don't even need to wrap it. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
As we wind down 2024, we've already been talking about our series approach in 2025. You've seen some of that here in this past year with Josh Herring, with Dub Maddox, and Accelerate Everything. And the series approach has worked really well. And I wanted to make sure we were bringing other perspectives into this, things where coaches are coming from different angles in the things that they're doing. And I am so excited about our sprint-based football series that we're going to have throughout the year. This is not going to be a short one. Coach Holler is going to be with us at least 2 times a month going forward. And the idea is that we're going to share all the things that he does and how it applies to our team, and thinking about the schedule of the year and the different things that you go through as coaches and that really come to the forefront at different parts of our offseason, heading all the way into the season. And I'm sure we'll have some input from Coach Holler as we go through the season as well, and how sprint-based football applies. I'm excited about this one too because it is a movement, and I saw that firsthand this past weekend. I went to the Track Football Consortium in Chicago, sat down and watched some of these presentations, got the opportunity to talk to the coaches who were presenting, to the coaches who were there learning, and I would say this really is a movement, meaning that this is more than a speed program. This is from seeing it from guys like Garrett Moeller and Brad Dixon, both who have been on our podcast in the Champions series, that this is how they've developed their programs holistically, not just in one thing. So our host for this entire series is going to be Coach Holler. He's going to have some great guests here, cover a lot of topics that matter to coaches and to players. So here's our kickoff of the Sprint-Based Football Series on Coach and Coordinator Podcast.
Craven, the hunter, who uses all the methods of the animals.
Now, witness the making of a new Marvel villain.
Once you're on his list, there's only one way off.
Aaron Taylor Johnson is Craven the Hunter. Rated R. Under 17, not admitted without parent.
This year, Santa's bringing the power of Energizer into his workshop.
Whoa, the Energizer Bunny's got so much power.
Wait, he's powered up all the toys. I think that means we're done for the year.
I love this bunny.
He's the hardest working helper the North Pole has ever seen. And he wants all your gifts to have the power of the #1 longest lasting AA battery. So this holiday season, stock up on Santa's and the elves' favorite battery, Energizer Ultimate Lithium.
Coach, I'm excited to get this going. This is our kickoff to it, and we're going to start this one slightly ahead of 2025 because I think a lot of coaches right now are thinking about how do I run my program starting in the offseason this next year. So, Coach, thank you for taking the time to do this, to join us throughout the year and putting this together.
Yeah, well, this is a labor of love for me. At my age, I'm 65, been out of the chemistry classroom for 38 years. I was in the chemistry classroom for 38 years, been out for 6, and I'm still coaching track, but I have enough time to do things like this. And I kind of see it, you know, the signs at the campsite. This says, "Leave the campsite better than you found it." And, you know, I'm entering the late 4th quarter of my coaching career, maybe my life. And I think this is my kind of like my gift back to coaching and my gift back to athletes.
in all we do with you on CoachTube, I've obviously seen the videos over the last few years here, but it really did take me going to the event to understand that it is a movement. I've heard you say it before. I've heard Brad and Garrett refer to it as that. I would love to get your perspective on how this is a movement for coaches and how you see this evolving and helping coaches throughout the country.
Well, there was no intention whatsoever of creating a movement. I was just 7 years ago, I was just a football coach that had stepped away from football. I'd coached football for 25 years, and all 25 years I coached football. I coached as an assistant. I'd been a head basketball coach for 10. I'd been a head track coach forever, but I'd never been a head football coach. So all football programs are so vertically aligned, meaning we're all got to be going in the same direction, that change is really hard. The tradition is just put forward kind of mindlessly. And so when I got out of football in 2017, I wrote an article called New Ideas for Old School Football Coaches, which is kind of my manifesto, saying, God, I hate football. Actually, I said I loved football and hated football, the love-hate relationship. But there were so many things I just thought were so dumb and wrong that I wrote up kind of a hard-hitting article, and that got some traction. And before you know it, Rick Aaron, Lena Winslow was feeding the cat and winning championship after championship. Brad Dixon started feeding the cats, I believe, the next year. And Brad Dixon has won 85% of his games. Garrett Moeller, who I don't even know how Garrett found us, but, he's won 28 games in a row. And he's feeding the cats, which is feed the cats is kind of like the source or the genesis of the sprint-based football movement. And it really is a movement, because in 2023, we had 8 state championship teams. There's several this year. We had several sprint-based football teams make it within a game of the state championship or lost in the state championship. So it's really a thing that once coaches hear it, see it, and do it, it almost makes traditional football look dumb. Like why in the world did we do that to ourselves, do that to our families, do that to our athletes? Why did we accept 10% injury rates? Why did we accept a season making all of our players 1 to 2 miles an hour slower by the end of the season when it counts? It just makes sense. And, it feels kind of like a snowball rolling downhill now.
Yeah, definitely. I see those things, and we've talked on the podcast before about a lot of this. The whole idea behind this is that there is a feedback loop. And I mentioned to you, I saw it in multiple presentations from guys that drives what's happening in your program. And we were talking a little bit before we got going. So would love for you to share the feedback loop, which is really central to sprint-based football.
Well, we are all copycats. We are master imitators. Even people that we consider not intelligent are able to watch somebody do something and then imitate it, do it. So we reflect people. And what happens is, and this is controversial, it should not be, but I know as a teacher, I used to say in my first day of chemistry, this is going to be your favorite class and I'm going to be your favorite teacher. This will be the best part of your day. And from there, I had to work at living up to those things. And what happens is that kids are good at what they like. It's really a simple thing. All these people that are hating on kids these days about these damn kids are entitled, they're spoiled, they're blah, blah, blah. I guarantee you they're all really, really good at what they like. So coaches have never really felt like they need to create a likable situation for practice because games are so fun. That creating something that people really like, what happens is the kids they probably already like football, but if they really if practice is the best part of their day, they're going to come bouncing into football practice every day, and they're going to be excited and enthusiastic, and then coaches can reflect that and become more excited, happier at practice, not looking at their watch every 15 minutes, hoping that their 3-hour practice gets over. And then they go home and they get work at becoming better coaches because it's just a feedback loop of love, really. And and making things fun and gamifying practice. And all those things will just make everything continually better. If you look back at traditional football, sometimes it's really important to say what sprint-based football is not. Coaches work kids so damn hard. The practices were harder than games. And it was a rite of passage. They even used a thing about we're going to turn you into men, like it was a rite of passage. And of course, all through human history, there's been boys were put through torture in order for them to become a man or something. And that was kind of the football mindset. And because of that, kids kind of drug their ass into practice every day, half tired, the steak was burned the day before. And then they could not perform at game levels. And so coaches had to yell and scream and be a tyrant and be mean to kids to get effort out of them. And effort might be a coach's favorite word because that's all kids could do when they're too tired to perform. They were in third gear, and it took a lot of effort to get them into third gear because of what you did to them the day before. So if you create this performance-based football system, or it's not a system, I call it, it's a way to cook. It's not a recipe. It's not a system. If you start cooking this way, you become a happier coach. You'll stay in the business longer. Your marriage will survive. You'll be a better dad. I actually got a letter once from a football coach's wife who said that I saved their marriage, which is pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah, you said that. I wrote it down. It really resonated. I mentioned in a podcast the other day that it definitely rang true for me, is that there's a lot of families, a lot of football families who aren't good families because of the game, because of the grind. And we tend to wear that grind as a badge of honor. Very much so. We've been talking about the players here, and you always say happy and healthy players. This needs to hold true for the coach as well. You mentioned we're reflectors. A coach can't make sure that the players are happy and healthy and then not be getting home on time, stay in the office, sleep in the office, not getting enough sleep, eating poorly, all the things that impact us and lead to burnout for coaches, right? That coaches are very much an integral part of this feedback loop and the happy and healthy part of this.
Yes. I don't think people maybe understand, like Brad Dixon, they don't have any of those like 6-hour coaches meetings on Sundays. They do all of their work when they can get it done solo. And then they use technology to communicate back and forth. And what this does is that some coaches can get up early on a Saturday morning because his kids are older and they sleep till noon. Well, that coach gets his work done early Saturday morning. Whereas another coach may have a couple preschoolers that get up at 6:30, and that coach needs to wait till those kids are taking a nap in the afternoon to get his work done. So it's really a family-friendly thing. And I think that load is so important. 90% of all injuries comes from load problems. We're just doing too much. We know for a fact that if you start practicing less and not burning the steak, that you basically will have a roster at the end of the season that's 98 or 99% intact. It's just an amazing thing. But I think coaches are the same way. I have two of my mom's brothers were Hall of Fame football coaches. And, it's almost like you have to just apologize to your wife at the start of football season. Like this is going to suck for the next 3 months. I love you for putting up with me, blah, blah, blah. Goodbye. And it doesn't have to be that way, nor should it be that way. And I think that, I've been in the game. I've been coaching for 44 years, and I'm more enthusiastic and I feel younger now than I did 30 years ago when I was 35, because I did what you were talking about. I wore my work as a badge of honor. It was everything I could do, I put into the game, put into coaching, and it takes a toll.
So, you want to be a marketer. It's easy. You just have to score a ton of leads and figure out a way to turn them all into customers. Plus, manage a dozen channels, write 1 million blogs, and launch 100 campaigns all at once. When that's done, simply make your socials go viral and bring in record profits. No sweat. Okay, fine. It's a lot of sweat. But with HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools, launching benchmark-breaking campaigns is easier than ever. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
This episode is brought to you by NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube TV. There's a lot to be thankful for this season. For one, I'm thankful you can get NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube TV right now for only $209. It's exactly what you need as we head right into the playoffs. You can invite your friends over. Maybe you have a multi-view. You could have 4 different games, one for you, one each for the 3 other friends you invite. You can change the games around as soon as the outcome becomes pretty certain. Dump that game, put in another one. I've become the multi-view master. The moment the one of the games is losing steam, I'm ready to move right in and move it for another one. Build your own multi-view. One of my favorite words. Thank yourself this holiday season. Get NFL Sunday Ticket for the rest of the NFL regular season for just $209. Sign up now at youtube.com/BS. Terms and embargoes apply. Device and content restrictions apply. No cancellations.
The other thing you mentioned here is we're going to teach you to cook. And I don't have a recipe for you. That this is very individualized to your program, to your athletes, to your coaching staff, to all the dynamics that go into a football program. This has to work in a unique way for you in order for it to be successful. And what really drove that point home to the guys I listened to back to back, Brad Dixon and Garrett Muller, in their introductions, talked about their first outreach to you and, expecting what we typically get. I mean, we talk about being thieves. I mean, copy paste is a function we do often, probably leads us into some issues. But you didn't give these guys the recipe. And both of those guys walked away from it thinking, well, this is different. I expected answers for this, this, and this, and I don't have them. And they had to figure it out, which I think is so important to coaching. We do have to spend the time up front in figuring out these things in a way. And it's all, this is an evolving thing. It's going to evolve as you go, as these guys talked about. Why is that so important, do you feel, when we look at sprint-based football, that coaches take that approach to it?
Yeah, I think we've both heard, that systems don't work. If somebody tries to copy, I remember about 15 years ago, the head coach wanted to run Urban Meyer's offense. So, I went out and got every playbook from Utah and Bowling Green. And I watched every game twice that, he'd coached at Utah. But, we didn't do it as good as Urban Meyer. Coaching is not plug and play. It's not copy and paste. So I feel good that basically there are parameters of cooking that have to happen. Things like we do away with conditioning. We don't focus on aerobic work in the summer. We get faster. We get more explosive. We never let the weight room interfere with our speed priority. Priority does not mean majority. We practice less. Pedro Arruza, who is a Division III football coach in Virginia, he's 56-5 since he started feeding the cats. I think this is a pretty good example of how you take my way to cook and plug it into your situation. Here he is at the Division III level, playing at a very high, 6-5 is a pretty good record. And their first 4 days went practice, off. That's already crazy. Like, you took the 4th day off, you practiced Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you took Thursday off. Not only that, but Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday was 1 hour. Hour off. And he went high-low. So he had a high day, a low day, a high day, and then off. And then he repeated that 4-day cycle until the first game. When you do that, you will see practices totally change. We want to gamify practice, which means make it look more like the game. And then also we want to put up game-like situations, things, like I still remember how much fun it was putting the ball at the 10-yard line and the coach saying, you got 3 plays to score. I mean, we loved it. That felt like the game to us. We were like keeping score. And when that happens, practice becomes better. So with these parameters of sprint-based football, that, like health is more important than anything else, the essentialism that goes in, where we are not looking for what we can add, we're looking for things to subtract, because when we subtract things, the things that we keep become better. I consulted with a football coach once that I said, how many pass plays you have? And he says, yeah, I don't know, 20, 22. And I said, well, I think you need to get rid of 75% of those. And almost like hurting. Like, I mean, those are like my children. Well, do you have like your 5 favorites? And he goes, yeah, I think so. I said, well, imagine getting really good at the plays that are already good. And that's the idea of essentialism. And football coaches, because they're such try-hard people, I think all football coaches came from a kind of like not genetically blessed as athletes. We had to work really hard. We had to really memorize everything the coach said. We had to be on time. We had to be present all the time. We had to win sprints. That's who we were. And so I think that the more disease, the disease of more is just rampant in coaching. We really have trouble with that. And saying by Charlie Francis comes to mind that great athletes, you don't have to push. You have to hold them back. And the problem is nobody holds back coaches. We are just crazy fools that want to. Herm Edwards says that he didn't sleep well at night as a coach because he's like waking up and like writing stuff down at 2 a.m. and stuff. Coaches are psychotic with that stuff. And just imagine if we were well rested and healthy all season, I think we'd probably coach better.
Definitely. And I'm excited about this series, which you're going to present throughout the course of the year. I would love for you to give us an overview of what we can expect from this series. I know there's going to be a lot of different topics. I don't expect you to give those right now, but thematically, what coaches are going to get out of this over the course of the year?
Well, first of all, I think when we talked about doing this and we talked about could you do 2 a month or something, 24, I think in less than 60 seconds, I wrote down 30 names. So there are so many people. I mentioned Pedro Arruza in Virginia, like does my stuff, but we have never talked, like person to person. We've always just talked online and stuff. But I can't wait to get him on that. And we're going to get people like Les Bellman and Brian Kula. Who Les Bellman's done a lot of consulting. The Arizona turnaround of 2 years ago when they went from bad to great. And of course, they're back to bad now because when you're great in college football these days, everybody leaves. Your staff leaves. It's crazy. But yeah, guys like Les Bellman and, we're going to have S&C people on. I'm looking forward. I think the next one we do after the Brad Dixon, obviously Brad needs to be first because I call him the godfather of the sprint-based football movement, and then Garrett Muller is I call him Godfather 2. So those guys got to be on, but we're going to have a guy named John Herschel on, and he is the S&C guy, really well-respected at Saraland, Alabama, just north of Mobile, and he is hosting our sprint-based football clinic January 17th, and we're really looking forward to that. We have Brad Dixon and I will both talk 3 times. John will talk. We have Brad Fortney, who is just a rock star, Enterprise, Alabama. He's going to talk. And then we have Tony Villani, who has worked with so many pros. He's probably worked with more NFL Combine people than anybody in the history of our nation. And he is just an amazing expert on things like routes and defensive back footwork and agility and all those things. And people have tried to pit him and me against each other because he says that football is played at 12 to 17 miles an hour. But he has embraced the feed the cats approach because he knows that to play football at 12 to 17 miles an hour, it really helps to be able to sprint at 23. Those speeds feel efficient. And, we all know that better athletes are better players. So it's going to be wild getting to talk for half an hour with like 30 different people in the next year. And it will be so good for me to learn what, as you said, because everybody's going to, have a kind of a different recipe, but they all know how to cook. And I just love sharing the recipes, but also love to, like reinforce those common threads that all sprint-based programs do. The whole thing could be just huge. We have people that are small school, high school. We have coaches that are big school, high school. We have college coaches. We had our first sprint-based football clinic last year in Texas, and it was a huge hit. The Liberty Christian hosted it. SNC guy named David Neal was our host, and they won a state championship in Texas this year. So it's just going to be a great time down in Saraland. Then we also have another one January 1st in the Nashville area at Ravenwood High School, a guy named Dan Quisenberry. Once again, it'll be me and Brad Dixon. And then we have Dan Quisenberry speaking. We have Tammy Blatnick, the head S&C guy at Middle Tennessee State University. And we have John Shaw, who is the speed coach for the Tennessee Titans. So it's going to be a great time. And it is a mix between building athletes and actually coaching in this, cooking this way as a coach.
Yeah, an exciting series for sure. I know you mentioned, there's a lot of coaches around the country who you may not even know of right now that are doing some sprint-based football things. And one of the things we want to do is we want to make sure we get some of their recipe in as well. So this year we have something called our Your Call series, bringing it back. So if you have some ideas to share in our sprint-based football podcast, please DM me at Coach K. Grabowski on X or email me, Keith@coachingcoordinator.com. We'll get you set up to record that, and we'll implement those in the shows or on the website and make sure that we're hearing all these different ideas, because ultimately this is about coaches learning different ways to do this, seeing what fits for their program, and then implementing it.
Yeah, it sounds great. I think that we've been criticized before the Feed the Cats movement and the sprint-based football movement as being a cult, because when people dive in, it's so much different and so much more rewarding, and it wins. It's such a competitive advantage that when you see the old school guys doing what they're doing, it hurts you. I mean, it hurts you. So people become kind of like faithful members of this club or something or whatever it is. But it really isn't a cult, because like you said, that everybody has their own recipe. And I definitely think that next generation coaches that are like this. And I do think that, I think I texted you the other day that I'm glad we're doing this now, because in 5 to 10 years, everybody's going to be doing this. Everybody, because it wins and it's healthy, and it's just, you're going to have 20 more players coming out every year, good athletes that just love football and all those things. And your response was something that was beautiful. You said, let's make that 3 to 5 years. And that is because you've kind of drank the Kool-Aid of this movement where you see the benefit. You have a son, and you probably think, man, I wish my son would have gone through a program like that. I have 3 sons of my own, and all 3 of them went through programs that, I mean, I'll never forget. My youngest 2, would come home from football practice and go upstairs and go to sleep and wake up like at 9 o'clock at night and try to do homework and eat. That's not any way to live. And of course, they kind of took pride in that because they were working hard, and that's what we've been taught. But it'd be a lot better to get good at performance instead of getting good at withstanding torture. And it's going to be great.
I'm looking forward to it. Again, thank you for the time you're going to put into this. There's going to be a lot of things we share with you, some sponsors, some products, some things that really make this work. And you'll see that there is a lot of science behind this too. And we're just excited to dig into all of this year. So stay tuned. Right now here in December, we'll probably have another one here next week, lead all the way into January and through the year to give you some information that's going to help you. Again, if you have ideas to share, reach out to me. I'll put some links in the show notes about the upcoming events that sprint-based football is going to have in Alabama and Nashville, and we'll keep moving this forward. So, Coach, again, thank you.
Thanks, Keith.
Be sure to follow all we're doing at coachandcoordinator.com. We'll have our enhanced show notes there as we gather more information that just lives better with video or downloads, whatever it might be that come across in these shows. If you're interested in our Your Call segment and sharing what you have, please DM me at Coach K. Grabowski on X or email me, Keith@coachingcoordinator.com. And we're excited about this series, moving things forward. So dig into sprint-based football. There'll be some links in the show notes for resources like Feed the Cats for football, other clinics that coaches have been mentioned in here already, like Garrett Muller and Brad Dixon, and we'll continue to make sure that we're getting you all the content you need to make this work in your program.